Welcome to the tutorial I'm creating on a scene cleanup. One of the things we want to see when we are working on our models is how hard some of the edges are, because they do make a difference when we are texturing the model. So that means that we have to go and actually look at the photos. I'm trying to see the highlights at this point, and I'm gonna go and see the actual reference, and I'm gonna see how hard those edges are. Um, and the reason is because when you are baking textures, the edges have an effect on the texture. And looking how it's going to look that area, it's important to get an idea of the smoothness that it has on the model. Now I'm looking at that particular area on the back of this cabinet, and I'm going to try to match the best that I can based on the model that you're seeing here. So the only thing I'm doing is just making sure that I have hard edges for those areas. And when I look around, I can actually see a little bit more, a better result of that now. Um, One of the issues that comes up often when you're texturing is the fact that you will have different smoothing groups on the geometry, because not all of them are very soft and very easy to they have like a nice bevel. Some of them are very hard the way that photograph looks. So sometimes you have to go and adjust those edges to make sure that you are doing that. Once you do that, I'm actually looking for other details or things that are missing, because they're going to be important once I start doing the texturing. As you can see, there are clips. They are part of the model, and this is just going to be an overlay texture, like a decal that we're going to be putting when I'm going to be modeling those, because it's just much simpler to just do a texture for those areas. I'm not going to export this. I'm just going to do one area, and then I'm just going to duplicate once I'm done with the texturing, because it makes no sense to do things one, two, or three or four times as you move along. I'm going to Again, at this point, I'm looking for edges, and also I'm looking to see there's a little highlight that you can barely notice on those edges. I think that will work out, but sometimes those are magnify when you are texturing. So, but also now I'm looking for areas where the geometry is not going to be visible. Like for example, those the back side of that is not going to be visible by the camera, and they won't be able to access those areas. So basically, I'm going to go in ahead and clean up and delete those faces because we don't need to have that uh, on the texturing. And again, I'm just going to look at what, and as you move and see forward, I'm going to start looking for faces that are not visible, and then I'm just going to delete those. Um, you use them to create, but once you start doing the texture, you come to realize, you know what, I don't need to see, I don't need to put a texture on that area. And here I'm actually going to add a few bevels. The polygon count is about 15,000 polys, but I think this area will benefit from having a bevel. There's a good chance that the people watching at this model might get closer and see. So we want to have a nice bevel even for those little areas. Because the polygon count is not that high, then that will definitely help. Again, in this area, I'm trying to clean up or delete faces that are going to be used. I'm having a difficult time selecting some of those faces, but basically that's what I'm doing here. Again, I'm looking at this point and I'm seeing that this particular area is going to benefit from having a bevel. So that is what I'm adding to this particular segment because that's one of the prominent locations or where the people are going to be looking at the model. So we could leave it like that, but I think this, again, because of the polygon count, we can go a little bit we can afford to add just a bit more on the bevel so it looks better. Also, because of the way that bevel works, we are adding geometry that is more than four faces. So we have to create, we have to cut the geometry. So we kind of have that in mind when we are exporting the model. And the reason is because the game engine will show and will display this kind of errors. So you always want to make sure that your model is looking good and the way the triangulation is going.